Well, I am so excited for this conversation today with Deep. You're the VP of Talent Management at Juniper. There is a lot of exciting things going on at Juniper these days, and I really admire your leadership, and I'm excited to have this conversation today.
I'm excited too, and thank you so much for having me, Sheryl.
Of course. And so before we jump into what we're going to talk about today, which has to do about empathy and really the importance of it and the value and also how it really impacts our bottom line, I thought I'd ask a little bit about you. And that is what inspired you to care so deeply about people?
hmm Yeah, actually, it's a very personal story. My inspiration, my role model has always been my father, my dad, who raised me in India in a very small town, Kota, Rajasthan. And at a very early age, I saw him. He was at the peak of his career. He's a doctor, he's a surgeon by profession. But he pivoted towards community service quite early in his career, rather at the peak of it. And that was very inspiring for me because, as human beings, we are wired um, to live for survival and to protect our loved ones. But to take that step of caring so much about the community, it takes courage. It takes vulnerability. And I saw him do that all through my growing up years. And he did it, very, very successfully, making impact on people's life. And so that's deeply, deeply personal to me, inspiring to me. And that also prompted me to choose my own career where, which has everything to do with people, humans, human resources, right? So yeah, I think the essence of what I do actually originates from that inspiration that I found with him.
Oh, perfect. And then on your ascent in your career, was it a smooth path? Were there any road bumps along the way? Anything you want to share?
Well, it was definitely not a smooth path. And I never thought if you would have asked my 10 or 15 or even 18-year-old self what I will be doing in my 40s, I would probably not have thought of this. But yeah, from the very beginning, I've been a person who would get driven by what am I trying to achieve here and not so much by what people are saying and doing. And again, my father has played a very pivotal role helping me make choices that are really, that can stand apart from what the usual, trend is. And so while I was very much on the path to taking either a medical or an engineering career in school, I actually chose a different path and I went with economics and political science major in Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. Then I pivoted on to doing my MBA in human resource management. I didn't know what that is, but I liked it, and I so continued on. And then when I really got into the job, I was an HR business partner in Shell, and I got this gig opportunity of working in a team which was focused on inclusion and developing a toolkit for that. And so design was like really resonated with me, and I felt like I need to go into a function that will allow me to do more learning, design, development. And I wanted to make that the essence of my job, developing people, like leaving them more developed than they, than they joined you and when you met them. And that to me became, the driver of my career choices. And I kept going deeper into talent management, learning and development, performance management, and all the systems that enable that, and all the software, which is the culture, right, that enable that. And so that's how I landed into this role, which now I've been leading for Juniper and have previously led for other organizations.
So that's really exciting. And so let's pivot and switch to talking about empathy.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people assume empathy is a soft skill, assume empathy is something that it's for women to do, and it's not, doesn't portray a strong leader. But I don't think that that could be further from the truth. It's part of my fearless female leader framework, building strategic empathy. And so, but I want to hear from you on the importance of empathy and leading with empathy.
Yeah, I mean, I think um, you're very right that when you hear the word empathy, it might prompt your brain, it might trigger it into some of those biases of it being a very soft skill. But actually, I tie it very strongly with a performance-driven culture, right? And in my current portfolio, as well as in the past, one of the prime sense of my role is to drive high performance in organizations. And um, organizations look at performance differently, right? If you unpack the whole performance systems that organizations have, it starts with clear goals. There is some sort of regular check-ins and feedback on goals, and then there are a set of assessments which periodically help you assess people on how they've done over a period of time, right? Which is through some sort of systemic. Some have ratings, some don't have ratings, and then it leads on to, okay, how does development look like for people? How does promotions look like? What rewards and recognition look like, right? So all of that comes out of that. So when you look at that whole system of performance management, I see empathy to be woven in so intricately through every part, enhancing the performance driving behaviors for leaders as well as employees. And we can talk more about that, but I do see empathy to be a very, very strong component through those performance systems.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. And so let's look at the flip side. If we, if we have empathy for high performing teams, then what happens if we lack empathy?
Right. So again, like going back to this whole, systemic understanding of empathy in the performance framework. Um, let's talk about goals, right? Like if goals are not set, having empathy in mind, they could be just being shoved down the line, right? Leaders are thinking about it and they are just getting cascaded down without enough collaboration, without enough alignment with what people want to do, what are their individual aspirations, how do they link with the organizational goals, right? And that's a very key role of a leader, of a manager, to really establish that collaborative goal setting process, which is all about empathy, right? Moving on to feedback, or the system of checking in on goals, which is a very important process to drive performance. If feedback is not given with empathy, if it's not a two-way process, you only give feedback and don't ask for it, once again, that process is going to break down. At some point, it's going to become like, okay, it's not, there's a lot of feedback or criticism without enough care that is being shown to me, without enough understanding of my perspective, right? So if you look at all of these systems, goal setting, feedback, or check-ins, even assessments, when you talk about ongoing conversations versus annual reviews, that is everything but empathy, right? Everything about that is empathy, because um, you want to do ongoing conversations so that you can keep in touch with what's happening on the ground, where support is needed, where can I show you understanding of where you are to enable that performance, versus an annual review system which only checks in once and gives you a rating, right? Not empathetic. So a lot of things about how we make decisions about performance processes can and may not be driven by empathy, which could have a very deep human impact, which could then affect performance. Right? It's a loop. So it's all connected. But I feel like empathy plays such a pivotal role through these micro decisions around performance.
Yes, 100%. And so for the those who are listening, what is a call to action? As far as remember to think this or to do this or to read this or to share this or what have you.
Yes, and I'm going to go back to, a very key design principle, something that I have also believed in my entire leadership philosophy, why just design principle, and it is the balance between creating systems that are bold and that are also empathetic, right? It's the balance between driving high performance and elevating that pitch and message, and accompanying it with deep care for people, authentic care for people, genuine care for people, right? When both of those factors combine, that is what really leads to a high performance culture, which all organizations aspire for, right? And so at a high level, call to action, keep those both the things in mind. Don't lean very heavily towards one side. And then I feel like, today everything is about personalization. People want personalized career development. People want, career paths that are not linear, that are very, very different. And so, in order to accommodate that, if we are not able to build an empathy-driven culture, it'll be very hard for us to even retain and attract top talent who is demanding that from organizations, right? So you know, I think it's time that as organization we start caring about listening and developing our systems and processes accordance with empathy based on what we listen.
Yeah, no, I believe that that's 100%. And so, and also too, to care, to sound like we care, we have to actually care.
Mhm.
And so I love what you're saying so much, and that maybe just the thinking through how can I authentically, I love the word that you use, authentically
Mhm.
care and be empathetic. And that's really going to not just retain top talent, it sounds like, but help them to perform their best.
Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. One call to action is the 5 second rule. When you hear someone, especially if it's an emotionally charged situation and somebody's saying something, give it 5 seconds. It can be the hardest thing for you to let those 5 seconds pass, but give them 5 seconds, and those 5 seconds would catalyze your ability to empathize, listen, and really internalize and process before you respond. So I'm going to leave you with that call to action.
Thank you so much. So the 5 second rule, Deep's 5 second rule, and just to pause, especially in emotionally charged conversations. Deep, thank you so much. I look forward to following all of your success, and I hope our paths cross again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Sheryl.